Since the uranium market videos in late November and early December, the uranium market is up. Here's the Sprott Uranium Miners ETF, here's the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. We published videos on November 22nd, November 28th, December 9th. And since then, we got a nice pump. So, hope you're entertained, guys. Of course, we're not here for small gains over short time frames, but it still feels good that we get a good start when we start studying a new area, doesn't it? But before we continue with this video, let's address an elephant in the room. Why the am I talking about uranium? Aren't we here for Bitcoin and altcoins? Why this focus on commodities? Have I lost faith in crypto? No. Absolutely not. Did I lose all my money in the crypto bear market of 2022? And now building an OnlyFans career? Also no. Am I pivoting to commodities? No. Let me explain. One of the key advantages that I have in the crypto market, and one reason that I feel that I can give you all often unique insights, is because I have multiple areas of knowledge. I've become really good at technical chart analysis. Maybe because of my background with a lot of mathematics. Before that, I was one of the best programmers in Europe actually on the demo scene when I was a teenager. I learned a lot about software development through that. Then, I have a tech industry background. I played a key role in creating probably the biggest technology of all time. That experience sometimes makes it easier for me to see through these complex technical crypto projects. And I have a leadership background. That means that I can sometimes smell which company or coin project the leadership teams could be successful and which ones probably won't. Doesn't always work, and I'm sometimes wrong, but on average, that has been very helpful. And so on. I'm not saying any of that to brag. That feels irrelevant, and I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I'm saying it to explain that it's precisely through combining, overlapping different areas of expertise that I can give you a unique perspective on something like crypto. It's not because I have a crystal ball, sadly. And many of the best Bitcoin traders are in fact old commodity traders. Why is that? I think it's because the mechanisms of price movement are very similar, just on different time frames. And I think I can take learnings from all these years now studying the crypto markets and gain unique insights in the commodities market, which can turn out profitable there. And something technology like uranium, I can monitor technology trends. I'm pretty good at that. I can perhaps see something which isn't that obvious. And by learning more about the commodities market, I might also become a better crypto investor. It's not because I'm giving up on crypto, quite the opposite. I'm more excited than ever. I just want to keep learning, keep improving. I hope I explained this for all those of you who asked this particular question. Now, onwards to uranium. I learned new key insights about the uranium market outlook after meeting Mark, and I'll share it with you in this video right now. I think you'll like it. Let's start with this tweet. Elon Musk, nuclear is way safer than coal. That's a reply to World of Engineering. To generate the same amount of electricity, a coal power plant gives off at least 10 times more radiation than a nuclear power plant due to the elements in the ash. Why are World of Engineering and Elon Musk comparing coal plants with nuclear plants? Aren't they entirely different? Well, we'll come back to that, and I'll show you something that I didn't know before. But charts first, and let's slow down a little. But here you might say, hey, wait a minute now. Everything is up. Stock market is also up. Yes, that's true. And just like we tried to remove the Bitcoin price bias from altcoins by looking at the alt to BTC charts, we could potentially look at the overall performance of uranium stocks versus the SPX index. And if we do that, so URNM is still the Sprott Uranium Miners ETF, SPX is S&P 500, and that doesn't actually change the outcome at all. This has also been trending up solidly since mid-December, assuming I've done this correctly, otherwise someone can point it out in the comments. Sprott Uranium Miners ETF. Reminder what it is. Track the performance of companies in the uranium mining industry. Biggest holdings, Kazatomprom, and as you probably recall, Kazatomprom is the world's largest uranium producer. Second biggest holding, Cameco. Cameco is one of the largest global providers of uranium fuel. Third biggest holding, Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, which unlike Kazatomprom and Cameco, invests and holds the uranium commodity as such. Fourth biggest holding, Denison Mines. We'll come back to this as well. I'll cycle back to this one as a summary, but just notice at a glance, one, that is trending up on the weekly. Second, that we're getting a series of higher lows. Higher low, higher low, higher low. If we now look at the various uranium stocks, UROY, which is the Global X Uranium ETF, and just as a reminder, that's also a broad range of companies involved in uranium mining and production of nuclear components. Top holdings are familiar, Cameco, Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, and so on. This chart and many others, as you will see, started building something that started looking like a head and shoulders top pattern. But if you remember your lessons from technical analysis in many of my previous videos, a head and shoulders pattern can also turn into a powerful bullish pattern if the right shoulder of the head and shoulder pattern is penetrated. Now this is a little bit messy, that's kind of two shoulders here, and it's not entirely clean. This never touched the neckline exactly, but if this is the shoulder, that's very close. And like I said in the previous videos, this level here gives us a clear level of invalidation. I said it here. That's why that entry made sense from a risk-reward perspective, because you limit your losses. And for now, it's still working out. Let's look at the next one. UROY. That's Uranium Royalty Corporation. I made an entire separate video on that. I'll link it here. And this chart, as you can see here, looks almost identical. It's building a head and shoulder pattern, but the neckline never confirmed. And should this turn up, breaking the right shoulder, this might get very interesting. Trend in question mark. We'll come back to that. CCJ, which is Cameco Corporation, one of the largest uranium companies based in Canada. Chart is potentially looking similar with one difference, and that is that this neckline is sloping upwards, which makes it more bullish and less reliable as a head and shoulders formation. Also, the line is diagonal. I don't like diagonal support lines or trend lines, so we remove that and just note that this chart is making higher lows, trending up on the weekly under this metric. DDN, Denison Mines Corporation, and once again you see almost the same chart painting something that looks like a head and shoulder, but the neckline didn't break down. Instead, we're making a run to try to break above the right shoulder. Now we're further from support, but remember I said that the proximity to the support level gives a limited downside, and with that a very interesting risk reward for something like this Denison Mines, which could potentially have very interesting upsides if they really strike gold or strike uranium. If we look at this ticker, UX1 exclamation mark if you are on TradingView, which is the UXC uranium futures. It's impossible to not note that this one is trending up and making a potentially interesting pattern here that looks very similar to the pattern over here. And you see the exact same pattern on U.UN ticker, which is the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. And this chart, after the move up, is forming a symmetrical triangle. It's getting too close to the apex of the triangle to be really reliable, but still breakouts from here are actionable. Symmetrical triangle can either be a reversal pattern or a continuation pattern if it breaks on the upside. So very interesting to watch. And if we then go back to URNM, which we started with, perhaps this becomes even clearer. This is definitely painting a bull flag here. You can see it very clearly. Move up, flag pointing down, confirmation on breakout. That would be a solid entry under classical charting. So as you can see, almost all of these are showing actionable patterns. And this is interesting because there are a few bullish arguments for more uranium upside that I learned from my friend Mark. Number one, we are using more uranium now than pre-Fukushima. Number 2, the growth in new power plants is very rapid. Number 3, the postponement of nuclear plants shutdowns means that the consumption hiatus expected in 2023-2024 has disappeared. Number 4, as soon as the premium is 1% NAV, that means net present value, Sprott is going to purchase whatever available pounds there are in this already pretty dry market. This all means that the future over the next few years could get pretty interesting here. Having said that, the market is never easy. Anything obvious is already priced in, and there's a lot of professionals trading in this market. The market is a perfect means of transferring wealth from the impatient to the patient, and uranium is known to have huge volatility. So it's easy to get flapped around here, so we have to watch out for that. And my uncle doesn't run the uranium market. I don't know anything more about the future than you do. I'm just studying, just trying to understand, just trying to be a little ahead of the rest. And 2 things that really hit hard on me that I promise to share are these 2. Here's an excellent uranium market update from Cantor Fitzgerald, and I want to draw your attention to this chart. Uranium supply-demand forecast. Of course, forecasts can change. It might not turn out that way. Still, they have spent a lot of effort on this, and the result is interesting. So the background here is the demand. Gray area, here you see reactor requirements, and then the thin green line up here is physical uranium funds net buying. Then the bars are the supply. We're now in 2023. The dark blue is the primary mine supply. Then comes secondary supply, tiny portion of inventory sales. That was pretty big here in 2021. This year is predicted to be tiny and onwards to be 0. Then comes something called restarted idle capacity of mines, I suppose. Then comes new mines under development, which is very little all the way to the end of 2040 at the end of the forecast period. And new mines planned only really makes an impact here in 2030. And even with that, the estimates they do here is that already from this year, they predict an imbalance between the demand and the supply. First, big new mines come online, they then expect to diverge like this from 2030 towards 2040 with growing demand and falling supply. And if this happens, what would happen to the uranium price, you think? Also, most of the demand comes from the West, while a significant amount of the supply comes from the East. And I think that Asia will outperform everyone's growth expectation again, which could skyrocket this demand even more. Remember how many new nuclear plants China is building? I covered that in the previous videos. Actually, I will link all the uranium videos in the description instead. It's easier for you, you can watch them there. The second very interesting report was this one from Haywood. Both these are on the internet. I'm not sharing anything I've received in private or anything. I just Googled it. And here we have another very interesting chart. There's a lot to take in this graph, but I'll walk you through it. This color here, which goes here, is reactors proposed. Timeline from 2007 to end of 2022. This area here is reactors planned. This is reactors under construction. The red and the yellow lines refer to the uranium price. And what I want to draw your attention to is this, that while the uranium price dropped here, the interest in proposing new reactors kind of flatlined. The planned reactors started dropping from 2015 onwards, and reactors under construction as well. And only now, like 2021, 2022, this chart has turned around. Suddenly there are more reactors proposed, and reactors under construction is slowly trending up again, and price of uranium is moving up. And there is now a similar number of reactors operable as pre-Fukushima. And if you look at the operable plus the constructing, planned and proposed, the total today is 934. which is significantly more than the current number. It's almost as many planned now as before the Fukushima disaster. Here we see the turnaround in uranium price in the TradingView chart as proxied by the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. So there's a possibility for an enormous imbalance between supply and demand in uranium. That is the big insight and the reason that I'm even interested in this. Now back to Elon Musk's tweet. Why even compare nuclear and coal? Well, because there are coal to nuclear plants to replace coal-fired plants with small modular reactors. Hang on a minute, why am I reading on Reuters? I'm an engineer. In Swedish, Master of Science is called civilingenjör. So let's stop reading on Reuters and start reading on New Civil Engineer. And here we read that disused coal plants could be converted for SMR, small modular nuclear reactors, because those existing coal plants have available water resources and existing grid power connections. I see those sites as very viable SMR sites, he said. And there are reports that show that 80% of the coal-fired plants can potentially be converted into nuclear plants with this SMR small-medium reactor technology, which is a massive potential upside opportunity for nuclear that isn't even factored in yet. We can make a whole separate video on that. 2 weeks ago, I was at the dentist and they had a TV above where you're laying with the Swedish news. And for that entire hour I was there, they were talking about uranium because Sweden has made a law change to allow the construction of more nuclear power stations to boost electricity production in Sweden, our Prime Minister said in this statement. And he has made expanding nuclear power generation a key goal for his government and reverse a process of gradual closures of several reactors in the past couple of decades. And as I think I said in one of the previous videos, sometimes it's worth looking at what a frontrunner country like Sweden is doing, because in the past, what Sweden has done has in many cases later propagated into a greater portion of the world. So I am paying attention to this, not only because I'm living here, but also in terms of analyzing the potential scenarios for the bigger market. And I was so fascinated, and I was laying there by the dentist and really trying to hear everything they were saying through the noise. In fact, there's a lot of news about nuclear from different parts of the world. That was Korea, Bulgaria, Belgium, USA, Saudi and US about nuclear energy and uranium. There's too much to say. I could talk in one video about each of these. Instead, let me tell you this, that we are working hard in the background. New developments we do, additions, etc. you will get access to as well. If you remember, which means if you have finished the course and you have the Lars Online and all that stuff. So make sure you're subscribed. Don't get scammed. ctolarsson.com. Thank you, tack. CTO Larsson out. Hej då.